Hello, and welcome to Stash Chats. Thank you for joining us on a Thursday instead of our usual Wednesday. Do pop a message in the chat so that we know that you're watching. Hello, Doug. Um, so do let us know if you've got any questions. So tonight's guest will be Tanya, who is the founder of Bornella Fabrics. So I'm really excited to have Tanya on the show to talk about her fabric shop, how she started it, how that affects her personal stash, and also her experience of designing fabrics as well. So, yeah, do let us know if you've got any thoughts or questions for Tanya, and I shall weave them in to our lovely conversation tonight. Just seen a few more people joining. So, hello, if you've just joined. Haven't missed anything yet because we haven't even got Tanya on the call yet. But yeah, let's get Tanya on right now. Everyone pop in the chat to say hello. Good evening, Tanya.
Hello, Yvette. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm in full prep mode for Stitch Festival, which is next week. But yeah, otherwise all good. Yeah, looking forward to having a chat about my stash.
You've been busy planning out your stand and everything like that.
Yeah, things that you think are really easy. This is the thing, like, because this will be my first sort of stand, my first sort of big show, and things that you I've been to shows for years, and you look at them and you're just like, oh, that's super easy to do. But then when it's your turn, you're like, oh, actually, there's an awful lot of work that is, that goes into doing a stand, which I've now realised. And all the little things you've got to think about, pricing, like how are you displaying your prices, where are things going to go on the wall, have you got everything, and all the things that you don't need necessarily for an online shop, like bags and things like that, you've got to think a little bit more about. So yeah, lots of fun though.
Exciting. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself first? Shall we start with your sewing journey? So how you got into sewing in the first place?
Yes. So my sewing journey started with my mum, actually. My mum bought me a sewing machine for Christmas one year, and I never asked for a sewing machine. I don't know what possessed her to buy one. I think she thought I would like it. Turns out she knows me very well. And we just moved into this house, and so I think she thought I would sew curtains or home furnishings or something. And so I experimented for a bit. I got into sort of making little bags. I found some online sort of free bag patterns to practice with. And I wanted to get into dressmaking, and I got as far as buying some fabric. I think, again, with my mum, we went to John Lewis, bought some fabric. I got a pattern from a magazine. I thought that'll do. Obviously, none of it, this is not how to start sewing. It's not going, I want to make that. And then, you sort of have to have a rough idea, maybe, of how fabric's going to drape. Is this going to suit me? All of these things. Anyway, I sewed I cut straight into the fabric. I didn't wash it. All the things that, again, in hindsight, you shouldn't really do.
And you don't know what you don't know when you first start, though.
You've got to start somewhere, and everywhere's starting place is different. And I basically started, and then I fell pregnant. And that dress was never made. It was beautiful fabric. I've never made it. And then, I'm no longer the size that I was pre-pregnancy. So yeah, then I didn't attempt dressmaking for, I would say, another 4 or 5 years after that, because I kept thinking, oh, when I lose a bit of weight after the pregnancy, after my sort of postpartum body, then I'll make something. And then I got pregnant again. You can see where this is going. And then eventually I wrote myself a list on things to do before my 40th birthday. And I only had 2 things: run a marathon, sew a garment to wear. And I did the marathon.
Wow.
And I sewed a garment, and honestly, it was, I haven't looked back. I mean, I don't think I've worn that garment once, by the way. It's rubbish, but I wore it with such pride. I was like, I made this. Really, honestly, I've got the buzz, and I've really, well, as you can see, I've set up a business. It was that much of a buzz for me.
Do you think it was just because it was so much more pleasant than having to train for a marathon? You're like, okay, I love sewing, I can sit down. And then you really got into it from there.
It's a heck of a lot quicker than running a marathon, that's for sure. I think because I sewed this. This is a Nico top with a stretch fabric. I sewed that this week on Tuesday night actually, and I think I managed to cut out and sew it all together in 2 hours. I can't do a half marathon in 2 hours, but I can sew a top. So you know, it's a bit more of an instant
Yeah.
fix.
Amazing.
Yeah. So so that would have been. I'm 44 now, so that would have been 4 years ago. And that was coming up to 5 years ago. So that would have been just before COVID. So that was the summer, and then we sort of had the lockdowns the following spring. I'm losing track of time. Yeah, so I probably had about, let's say, less than a year's experience by the time that lockdown hit. And so then what I found was I was at home with 2 small kids. I think my son was probably about 7, my daughter was 3. So the daytimes felt quite long and draining because I was homeschooling and I wasn't working. And so in the evenings, my me time was sewing. And so in a way, I sort of ramped up my sewing skills during that like a lot of sewers that started during COVID, but I sort of really ramped.
I mean, there was nothing else to do that whole 2 years, was there? Just lost Tanya there.
Are we back?
You still there? Yeah. Okay, I can still hear you. I think we might have a bit of a dodgy connection here. If you're watching in the chat, can you let me know if you can see what we're doing? Otherwise, I might have to try a new link. Let me just... Oh, hi, Mel. Sorry, we've just lost Tanya for a second. We might be having some connection issues, but let me know what's going on. Yeah, Mel says, I can see and hear you. You're good, Tanya's frozen. Yeah, I think Tanya's just dropped out. I think maybe it's her internet, but hopefully she'll be back on in a minute and we can carry on hearing about her sewing journey. So yeah, let us know if you've got any questions that you want me to ask Tanya when she's back online. Here she is. Hello.
My husband sends apologies. I think he logged on to go and play FIFA.
Oh no.
And the Wi-Fi decided that was too much. So
it's just like, absolutely not. No FIFA tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we got up to. Probably about COVID, I think. COVID sewing.
Yes, so carving out some me time with sewing.
Yes. So I would say that was my apprenticeship. I sort of started and became quite obsessed, as you know, you can do if once you get down that rabbit hole of that sewing rabbit hole on Instagram anyway. So yeah, where did we get to? So yeah, so probably after a couple of years of sewing for myself, at that point I think the children were pretty much back to school, and I was looking to start my own business. So I used to work full time before children, and it dropped down to 4 days a week when I had my son. But I quit work when I had 2 kids because it was just too much. So I was looking to go back into work, but I wanted to have something with a bit more flexibility. And I seemed to have should we say, a small fabric buying issue at one point because I was obsessed. I think I knew all of the big fabric shops, what they had in, what was brand new, what was going on. I was really, really into fabric, and I just thought, actually, I could probably do this. I reckon I can run a business selling fabric. But I didn't want to just be a business selling fabric. There's lots of great businesses out there, but I'm very conscious of the environment, so I really wanted something that wasn't going to be bad for the planet, because I would feel bad in myself, and it's being sustainable is important. It's important for the kids. I've seen it as they've grown up. The kids are really clued up about this stuff, more than probably my generation. So that's why I wanted to do sustainable fabrics rather than just fabric.
So Mel says, how did you come up with the name Bornella?
Okay. So my second great love of hobbies before children, I would like to say, was diving. And I'm a trained dive master. I have dived a lot of places around the world. So I actually dived on my honeymoon. Oh no, sorry, not my. I did dive on my honeymoon. I dived the day after I got married. I got married in Iceland, and we went diving in Iceland. Oh, wow. So I was like a full on dive fan. And my favourite things are sea slugs. They're called nudibranchs. They are tiny, so they can go from like tiny, weeny things to probably about this sort of size. And one which I have never seen is the Bornella anguilla, otherwise known as the snaky Bornella. I have never seen it, weirdly, but there are lots of nudibranch names. At one point, I have a. How sad I am. I actually have a reference book of nudibranchs where I put gold stars in all the ones I've seen, which have got all the Latin names, all of the habitats, everything. But the snaky Bornella I've never seen, and a lot of the nudibranch names were quite Latin and complicated, but Bornella seemed to be a bit more easy to say. So there you go.
I think Bornella's quite a pretty name for a sea slug.
It is. It's a pretty sea slug, actually.
Yeah.
And actually, my brother-in-law designed my logo, and he's made the pincushion look a bit like a sea slug. If once you see it, you know it's there. It's not on field.
Oh, interesting. I'm going to look at that in a whole new light now. Oh, that's really interesting. I feel like the idea of diving is just terrifying to me. Being under the ocean. The ocean is like so frightening. It's too deep. There's too much weird stuff in there.
Well, I was at a crossroads in my life at one point, and I could either, because I'd spent so long sort of traveling and diving as well, I could either stay in, at that point, Honduras and train as a dive instructor, or come back to England and get a proper job. And I went for the proper job. And a lot of me wonders what would have happened if I would have, become a dive instructor, sorry. But anyway, we are where we are.
Oh, that's so crazy. Yeah. So back to the fabric store. What makes Bornella Fabrics sustainable?
Okay, big question. And sustainability is almost like, everybody's definition is different. So I've got some very hard and fast rules. I won't stock anything with polyester. So it's the number one. So everything that I stock fabric-wise, I want it to be able to rot down at the end of its lifespan. So cottons, viscoses, linen, for example. I've had a debate with myself about polyester thread. I do stock rPET, which is the recycled polyester. But I still have an issue with it because at the end of the day, there are still microplastics that will eventually sort of, leak out through washing and everything. So ideally, one day there will be a sort of better solution. I know there are now Tencel threads, but you only get them in massive cones and not quite as easy to stock and to come by. So I sort of figured if it was a choice between, polyester and recycled polyester, I'd stock that. Again, there are cotton threads, but I've never got on with cotton threads, and I only stock products that I feel I would want to sew myself. So I find with cotton threads, it breaks quite easily, which means you're less likely for your garment to last, and if it's not going to last, you know, it's not reaching its full potential of its lifespan. So that's one thing. And linen, I always love linen. It is really easy to grow, so you don't need harsh chemicals and things like that to grow. So I try where I can to stock sort of linen blends. I'm not a specialist, but yeah. And then otherwise, I don't know. There's lots of things that I turn down, and I absolutely love them. You know, even the dead stock. So I again stock dead stock. You have to be a bit careful with dead stock, because some of it is not as dead stock as you think it is. I mean, how you can get, I mean, there are some dead stock suppliers and you can get like 500 meters of it. You think, how can somebody over order 500 meters? It seems a bit off to me. And again, I won't even not looking for, even though it's dead stock, I still won't stock anything that's polyester or poly blend dead stock. And there's an awful lot of polyester out there. Also things that you don't think are polyester because they're not called polyester. So things like chiffon and tulle and trying to think, you know, even like quilted cottons, quite often they come, if they're quilted, they'll come with like
like polyester wool. Yeah.
You can buy cotton and you can buy bamboo wadding to go in the middle. I don't sell it, you know, hopefully one day I will, but there are better ways of doing things. It just might mean a bit more effort on sewists' part. Yeah, so that's, but like I say, whenever you talk to somebody about sustainability, it's everybody's got a slightly different way of looking at it. Some places will stock recycled polyester, like sweatshirting and things like that. And I still have the problem with the microplastics, even though they're recycled, it's still plastic. So I'm not comfortable stocking that. What was the other thing? Yeah, I've seen lots of innovation with things like pineapple. So I found a supplier or one of my suppliers now stocks pineapple. And it's weird. It's a nice fabric, but they mix it with polyester. So it's pineapple with polyester, and you sort of go, well, what you've gained with one, you've sort of taken away with the other. So there's still a lot to be done on the sort of sustainable front. And again, everybody's definition is a bit different. But I hope that, because what I try and do is make sure that even though the products I stock are, you know, better for the environment, you still want to wear them and you still want to, you know, they're not just a bit dowdy and a bit plain. Because I don't know, my suspicion is a lot of people think sustainable just equals a bit boring and a bit, you know, and that's not the case.
And you still got to like dress for your style and feel like joyful in your clothes. Otherwise, if you make something really boring, you won't want to wear it, and that's not sustainable either. Like, there's so much to it. Because you stock quite a lot of prints in your shop.
Yeah, so I stock a lot of prints. Again, it's a sort of balance. So I was thinking prints versus solids. I've got to be honest, as my taste hasn't changed. My taste hasn't changed, but I think my buying has changed over the last sort of 2.5 years that I've been running the business. Just because you see what people like, and again, it's the people that are attracted to my company will buy the products that I'm selling. So I'm not saying this is across the board, but you know, the brighter prints tend to, you know, people find great joy and delight in wearing them. So yeah, I like to please. I like to stock. You know, I like a graphic print. I like a retro print. It's pretty much my jam, really. I love it. And honestly, the buzz of when you first get something out of, I either see it online, because a lot of the shopping I do online, I don't often get to see a sample in real life. Sometimes I do. So yeah, it's a real buzz when it actually comes and you're like, it's as good as I thought it would be.
That's so exciting. I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions about the shop, and then we'll talk about your stash.
Sure.
So Bobby says, have you got any slippier viscose for sleeve linings?
Probably Probably not, actually. I do have a few sort of satiny ones, but they're all printed. So I think if you wanted a sleeve lining, you're probably looking for something a bit more plain. Yeah, I don't really stock. I tell you what, dead stock, you can get lining material coming out your ears. Obviously, lining material is something that it doesn't really matter, I guess, you know, the brands if it's plain. But if that's the sort of thing that people are after and looking for, then definitely something I can find very easily. Yeah, I tend to shy away probably from the slippier stuff, mainly because I don't like sewing with it. It's not to say that I you know, I'm not only stocking the shop for me, but I just sort of think, you know, I don't want to just have products that, you know, are hard. You know, sewing should be fun, and so by all means, you know, have some nice stable cottons, and then, you know, chuck in a nice drapey fabric. That's great.
But yeah, something to think about when coat season comes back around.
Yeah. Okay.
And do you want to tell us about your fabrics that you designed?
Well, I have to hold my hands up and say I actually didn't design them. So I wanted to design them. And the moment I saw this print, so this is, I don't know if you can see. So I've just finished this jumpsuit on, what was this week as well. Anyone would think that Stitch Fest is coming. I'm attempting to get everything ready. So I saw this fabric as a print, just a sort of sample. A surface pattern designer had it in their portfolio. And the moment I saw it, I couldn't get it out of my head. And it was almost like the universe had aligned. It sounds really silly, but I'm quite a big believer of right place, right time. So I was at a trade show in London. I had my daughter with me who, you know, is 6. Well, she was 6 then. And she was not interested in looking at fabrics because it was, I think, the last day off school for the summer holidays. And so she was getting dragged around this trade show. And luckily, some people had some sweets that they could give us, so I could get 2 minutes apiece. And so I wasn't going to go and look at the pattern designs because I just wanted to get her out of the building and let's go home. And I saw, you know, got chatting to the guy. I saw this print, and you know when you just know. So so it's designed by a guy called Sholto Dram Lumbig, which is a bit of a mouthful, but he designs for Liberty, he designs for Dashwood, he designs for Bowden and Next, and basically Barber. So like,
amazing.
Yeah, and the moment I saw it, I thought, I can't do that. I know my limits. My limits are way less than that. So yes, we had chat, and I was semi-serious about printing fabric. I hadn't really done any research. Like I say, I wasn't even going to speak to the guy, but you know, like I say, right place, right time. And so I had to go away, had to do an awful lot of research about how to produce fabric. And I am a shop, so also how to it's easy to produce fabric. It's difficult to produce fabric for the cost that you need to then be able to make money. So of course, you know, Spoonflower and places like that where you can upload design, that's easy, but not if you are paying, you know, £18 a meter, you know. So it took me quite a while to be able to find a supplier that I trusted and to get a price and to trust the process. So yeah, and then in the meantime, we did some other colorways, we did some experimentation, and basically that's where we got to a cotton. I wanted to do it in a linen viscose, and that was my dream. That still is my dream, but baby steps. The linen viscose it was hard work to find what I needed, and I wasn't prepared to compromise. So, but I was very happy with cotton, so that's what it will be. It's cotton poplin. And yeah, we will see in the future how it goes. But the quantities that you have to order are beyond anything that as a small shop that I know about, and I only really got an inkling. So I've ordered basically 100 meters of each, so 300 meters in total for the three across the three colorways. And I only got an inkling about 2 days before it came, quite how much that was going to be. When I was just idly talking to my dad, and I just sort of said, "Oh, this pallet delivery is going to come, and I'm a bit worried it's not going to get off the lorry. What if they?" And he said, "Well," I said, "Oh, I'll just carry it in, just because I work from home and I work out of home." I said, "Oh, I'll just carry it in through the front doorstep." And he's just looked over my shoulder at this thing and just went, "But that's 200 kilos, Tanya. You're not carrying that anywhere." I was like, 200 kilos is. And then I thought, oh no, it's really not, is it? It's an awful lot of fabric.
So is your house like floor to ceiling rammed with your custom fabric now?
It feels that way. I think there's a bit of well, there's not fabric in every room, but it does feel like I run it out the spare room, but the spare room at the minute is bursting at the seams. After Stitch Festival, hopefully, if all goes well, it'll be slightly less bursting at the seams. But yeah, there's a lot of rolls of fabric, so it's a nice problem to have. But
Amazing.
Yeah, I'd never visualised. It's funny, it's the things you don't realise. You've never visualised what 100 meters of fabric times 3 will look like, or weigh.
Yeah. Oh wow! So did you have to carry them all in through the front door like a bit at a time?
Yeah, and it was raining. So I knew the delivery. I had such trouble with this delivery. Honestly, everything about it went wrong. It got stopped by HMRC. There's many things that anyway could have gone smoother.
It's here now.
I knew it was going to arrive the moment it started raining, and I was like, "Now's the time." And sure enough, it was the time. So I had to try and sort of get it, like sling it all in as quick as I could. So nothing got damaged. It was all fine.
Excellent. Bobby says, do you have the other colorways of your fabric?
I knew you were going to ask this. The short story is yes, but not on me right now. But I can get someone to go in there once.
I mean, it must be about, there's hundreds and hundreds of meters of it all over the house.
Do you know what? At the moment we started this call, I thought I have forgotten to get the other colours. And no one's coming to my rescue. Anyway, can you help me out for a second? I need you to get something.
This is live production for you.
Right. Yeah. Could you bring down, sorry, the bolts of fabric? I need all 3 colours. I've forgotten them. Thank you. I'm not in this. Anyway, moving on. We'll come. Yes.
Yes,
the fabrics are coming.
The whole section.
Yeah, give him a few minutes. Yeah.
So do you find that now you're shopping to stock the shop, you're shopping less for yourself?
Yes, 100%. So I have been known to order fabric for the shop, mainly because I need something. And so if I need some trouser material, everyone else can have trouser material, I'll just take a bit. So yes, I've definitely stopped. I haven't stopped buying fabric. I definitely still buy fabric, but I've become much more selective about what I get. I am I'm a bit of a snob now as well, so I think I tend to now know what I'm looking for. I mean, again, if you know, it's one of those things. But the more that you handle and feel fabric, you sort of, once you see it on pictures, you get an idea of whether it's sort of good enough. That sounds terrible. All the other fabric shops, I'm not dissing any fabric shops, but when you just see some fabrics and you go, okay, that's going to be a really good quality thing, and then some other ones you're like, yeah, I'm not so sure. So yeah, I think now I definitely try and shop more for the quality, just because I know exactly what it is I'm getting. My beautiful assistant No, he's not coming on camera, but as if by magic, here we are.
Put you in the full frame.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, so we've got this one. Hopefully you can see it okay. Here we go. So yeah, this one. I think the way I look at my fabrics were that the black version is almost like a 40s or 50s colours. So I'll show you that one first, seeing as I'm wearing it.
So was the black the original colourway that you first saw the print?
Yes. So the black. Here we go. So that's the original colourway. And I don't know, there was something about the shape of the flowers, there's something about the colours, but for me, it absolutely sort of, I don't know, it ticked all the boxes for me. Here we go.
I love the scale of it as well.
Yes, because I like a big print. I'm not a big fan of a tiny ditzy print. For me, you know, obviously, ditzy prints, and I've used ditzy prints, and they can look really good, but I like a nice statement floral, so this was that. I sort of think this has got a lot of 40s or 50s colours in there, sort of with the sort of blues and mustard sort of combo, and that sort of, you know, orange, nice bright orange.
Yeah, I love it. It's so vibrant.
Yes, and so then let me work out what I'm gonna, like I say, every single place in the house is fabric. Now the kitchen. So then so this is my 70s. So we've done 50s, we're now on to 70s. And I wanted one which was basically reminiscent of bed sheets. So for me, that was like my absolute, this is the one I was just like, it has to be these types of colours. Yeah, so sort of lilacs, purples, greens and blues.
That's really cool. Like those colours, and if you said what are the 70s colours, those are not the colours that I would think of. But when you say like 70s bed sheets, now I really see it.
Yes. Funny enough, a friend of mine has a dress, so she lent me a 60s original vintage dress, just cotton dress, because the colours of it were pretty much these colours, and it was so good. Maybe it was 70s, very late 60s, 70s, but I just couldn't get it out of my head. So, you know, when you have the luxury of recreating the sort of colour palette, yeah, so that's, I think, a bit more 70s. I've made something out of each of the fabrics now. So I've made the Zadie jumpsuit in the this colourway. I've made what's it called? The Valley.
Oh, that would be lovely.
In the 70s, and then this one I think is my homage to the 90s. So this is again, it might just be in my head, but it's the sort of purples and pinks which in the 90s they were my colours, and
yeah, it's giving funky friends.
Yeah, that is exactly it. The sort of very late 90s sort of vibes. So I sort of think I've tried to do, you know, 20 years apart with each one.
That's a really cool concept.
Yeah, it's I'm really happy with it. I mean, and being really picky, I really wanted this colour pink. I really want, that was the one thing I was like, it has to be this colour because this is the colour for me. Not for me to wear, but just that's the colour I love. So, you know, if you're gonna
for the vibes,
if you're gonna have the luxury of, you know, choosing the colours, why not choose something that you like? So but it seems to have gone down really well online, so hopefully that will, you know, once it actually launches at Stitch Festival next week, hopefully people will agree. I've made the Anthea blouse in this because firstly because I wear my Antheas all the time, and I just, again, it's because it's nice big print, like pattern, and those panels, the sleeves are quite big, so you've got room for the you know, for the design to actually sort of breathe a bit. So yeah, there you go, my first show and tell. I've got more to show and tell, by the way.
Amazing. So quickly before we do your show and tell, do you want to just tell us about your stash? Like generally, sort of how do you store it? How big is it? What's it like?
Okay, so my stash used to be big. I used to think it was small, but then the way I used to think it was small was because I kept it in 3 different places, and then yes, I was not very what's the word? Regimented with my stash. In general, I tend to buy for a project. So if I know that I want trousers or a top, or I generally do it that way round. In the past, I have just gone, right, I just like that fabric. Okay, buy. But that's the fabric that tends to sit in the stash. And I prefer it to have stuff coming in that I know, okay, I've got something planned for that. Okay, I can start that project. So that's how I like to work. Like I say, sometimes you can't help but just fall for the shiny, nice stuff online. And so, yeah, so anyway, over the past little while, actually, I've been trying to sort of wheedle down the stash a bit. So I inherited a lot of stuff. Some of it I will show you before I could even sew. So I already had a fabric stash before I owned a sewing machine.
Maybe this is why your mum got you the machine. She was like, gotta get rid of all this crap. Get Tanya a sewing machine.
And then I think over the course of, I don't know, a couple of years of really, looking for stuff online, I sort of got a bit carried away, actually, at times. In some ways, I've turned my stashing into an industrial level of
ordering 300 meters of fabric.
But I'm but I think differently now about my stash, because I know my stash is now things. So there's very little that like I said, I don't often buy stuff now unless it's absolutely I can't can't live without it, or it's something I need. So yeah, I store it up. We're in the process of attempting to get all of my sewing things in one room. This is not going well. If I'm completely honest, it's not going well. So I had a lot. I do all my sewing at my kitchen table. I don't have a big space, so I run the business out the spare room. I do all my sewing at the kitchen table. So I have my machine downstairs, my overlocker. I normally have my work in progresses downstairs. I then had my box of scraps. I had my other work in progresses, which was a hidden stash, basically. My patterns were all downstairs. My pattern books, my reference books, things like that, were all downstairs. And then upstairs was more stash in 2 different places. And what else was there? Yeah, and then some haberdashery that was split between the kitchen and the store cupboard next to the spare room, the little cupboard. So it's not very organised. But this year, so since the beginning of the year, all of my things have been taken out of downstairs and they've been put upstairs. That does mean that upstairs is a mess, but the next job is to try and organise some actual storage space to put them. The downstairs is looking lovely. The upstairs now looks atrocious. So it does need organising. But I need to sort of invest in some actual shelves or Calax units or something like that that I can sort of properly organise. So I'm sort of half organised at the minute, if that makes sense. But ideally, it will be fully organised in the not too distant future.
Excellent. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that sort of situation where you've got the motivation, but you just need to actually now do it.
Yeah, there's always something in the way, though. That's the problem. It's just like, I'd rather sew than spend the time organising.
Yeah.
And especially, also, if you've got, work and kids and all the other things, the last thing you want to do with your spare time is to organise. But then it makes your sewing so much more effective, efficient, because you know where everything is, and you don't have to spend the 20 minutes going between, is it in the haberdashery pot in the kitchen, is it in the haberdashery pot in the cupboard? You find it much quicker
Yeah. So right, do you want to show us some fabrics?
Yes. So you'd asked me highlight. I think is it highlights from my stash? I think so. So anyway, I've got a few highlights from my stash. I'm very happy for suggestions of things to make. I'll tell you what I was gonna make with them, and then we'll see. We'll see. So the first one, I'll start with the oldest. And when I say old, it's really old. So this is my favourite piece of fabric that I own.
Wow.
So this is, right, you may not be able to see. It's actually got, it's a sort of jacquard weave. You can just about see there. It's a jacquard weave. So right, have to work out who they are. My grandma's sister, great aunt Lydia, had used to sew. In fact, my grandma was a seamstress as well. So, and they all lived in North London. And so probably about 25 years ago, before I had my sewing machine, great aunt Lydia's son died. I mean, he was in his 80s. You can imagine how old great aunt Lydia would have been. So this, we think, dates from either the 1950s or the 1960s. We're not entirely sure. And so basically, great aunt Lydia's stash was still in her son's house when we cleared it out. So we had an awful lot of great aunt Lydia's fabric, and I couldn't see it go. So I took it all home on the tube in a carrier bag, and then moved it from house to house to house to flat to for however long, since the early 2000s. And so this has been, so I would say this is, so what, 1950, so this was probably about, I don't know, 75 years old, something like that.
Wow. How much have you got?
Well, this is the thing. A lot, but I'm not entirely, I'm going to say 2 meters, but I think it's quite narrow. So, yeah.
It looks quite lightweight as well.
It is. I've got no idea what it is. I mean, it's a jacquard, so it's a little bit thicker, but my guess is probably some sort of viscose. I mean, it might even be a sort of poly. I'd have to do a burn. It might even be it feels cottony on the ends. I'm not sure. I'd have to do a burn test, but it's sort of on both sides. It's quite simple. I mean, there's definitely a wrong side and a right side, but
yeah, it looks really textured. Yes,
and so it's the sort of thing, because one thing you can do with fabric print, one thing I've thought about actually, and probably will do if this fabric launch goes well, then I'm looking to maybe do a second round towards the end of the year. But this, I thought, could I copy it? Could I?
Yeah.
But because it's got a jacquard weave, I don't think it would look the same. And so I don't know. The jury's out. I'd really need to speak to some experts who know more about this stuff than I do. But I just love it.
It's a really interesting idea, though.
Yeah, because I actually I asked Louise from Ethel and Joan, probably just after I met her, actually, a couple of years ago. I asked if she would be able to recreate some of Aunt Lydia's buttons, great Aunt Lydia's buttons. So she had. So like I say, everything from this house was probably dates from the very, very latest, probably about 1950, early 1960. And so she had these buttons, and I asked. I tried to get them recreated, and in the end, it wasn't possible because they were just manufactured in a way that it's hard to explain. Anyway, so that was my first task at recreating something of great Aunt Lydia's. Again, I'm not sure this can be recreated, but anyway. So that's my first sort of precious
impossible
stash.
to imitate the great Aunt Lydia.
She was I can't even say uninhibitable, maybe. So yes, I have no idea what I would make with it, and I am so nervous of cutting into it that I think I get more pleasure, if I'm completely honest, of knowing it's there and having it uncut.
Yeah.
And Does that sound bad? But
I mean,
I
at least
actually don't.
at least you know that's your situation where you're like, it's safe, it's fine.
I think I will always get more pleasure knowing it's there. The promise of the fabric is more pleasurable to me than if I were to sew it. Because even though I could make a lovely blouse, and I'm sure once I cut it, it would be fine. But I don't think I would enjoy the blouse as much as I enjoy, and I still do. It's really sad, but I do actually get it out from time to time, just have a look at it, and then put it back in exactly the same as it was. And God, I'm sad.
Well, it's got a lot of potential when it's just uncut as well. That's
Yeah,
why it can be difficult to cut into these things.
yeah, and it doesn't really. I mean, in a way, I didn't know Great Aunt Lydia, so I don't really have. I think I met her once, and I was, I don't know, 7, 8 or something. She was very old. So I certainly don't have any attachment to her. We knew her son, Uncle Jim. I have obviously more attachment to him, but I don't think it's about that. I don't think it's about the attachment. I think it's about the fact that I just like looking at the fabric and knowing it's there. Anyway, I'll stop waffling now. Right. My next show and tell, another one from Great Aunt Lydia, but this one's very different, and actually some ideas would be good. So again, this one probably again dates from that similar period, 50s, maybe 60s. I'll see if I can. Right. So it's a jacquard. It's thick, and it's probably trying to get an end.
Loads of it.
There is a lot actually. So it's sort of a bit shiny. It's like shiny gold with the colour's not really coming out very well, but it's shiny gold with a green, and you can probably see it better on the back. Because it's a jacquard weave, it's the reverse on the side.
Oh, yeah, it's quite like a deep sort of emeraldy green.
It is. It's like a really quite. It's actually darker in real life than the camera is letting on. It really is. I don't know, is it better? No, you probably can't really get a good idea. But anyway, so you've got the gold side and you've got the green side. It's going to be gold for me anyway. And again, there's quite a lot of it, so I think you could make something pretty decent with it. I wondered a coat, actually.
Yeah.
You make some sort of cocoon jacket or that sort of style where it's a little bit more structured. Let me hold it up.
Yeah, I feel like something with big structure could look really couture in that fabric.
Yeah. So again, you sort of get it really is quite gold when you catch it at certain lights, and then the back is but yeah, suggestions very welcome. Anyone,
let us know in the chat what you think Tanya should make with this.
There we go. But yeah, there's an awful, I mean, I'm 1.5 meters, so I reckon I've got a good 3 meters of that.
Gives you plenty to play with.
Yeah, and I think it's quite wide as well. I know some of the vintage fabrics tend to be quite so it's not so well. It's probably, I don't know, 120. I think it's a bit bigger than 110, but yeah, it's a decent amount. Yeah, so that's my second fabric. So those two are sort of true vintage there, and then the next one, so this is my last show and tell fabric, is one that I bought for the shop. It's the only fabric I've bought extra of because I knew I wanted to have some of it, and it's so normally, by the way, when I buy stuff for the shop, I only tend to buy it if it's, if I've got stuff there, because I'll put it on sale, or sort of put it on a fabric drop, and if there's still a bit after a while, then I'll help myself. But this one I actually ordered extra. It is dead stock. It's, I'm going to say, is it Hermes or
oh wow,
Hermes? the French designer, and I think it's a viscose, but it's very thick and it's sort of shiny. If you can see, it's got a sheen to it. So actually, it's I'm not very good at doing this.
Hard to get the light correct, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Anyway, it's got, you can probably see it a bit there. It's got a bit of a sheen to it. Here we go, sort of see it there. And it's just the print that you know, sort of did it for me. So it's like a sort of, I'm trying to get the light to not.
Yeah, it's really graphic.
It's a weird optical illusion. It's really graphic. I just saw it and just went, it's amazing. So my original plan, and it's there we go. So my original plan, which is sort of still my original plan, was that I would make a blazer, and then if I still had fabric left over, that I would then make there's a Vicky So's sort of like pinny dress. I think it's called Audrey, which would look like super good because it's like mini skirt or mini dress sort of style thing. And so I thought, because it's so precious, I won't want to cut into it straight away. So what I'll do is I'll do a tester of the blazer anyway. I'll do a tester on the blazer with a different fabric that, you know, if I make a boo-boo or whatever, then I'll it won't be so bad. So I decided to do it with some Ankara because that was also quite patterned, or Ankara, sorry, I say it wrong. Some Ankara fabric because it's always quite patterned. And I'm still making that. It's been about 9 months. So it'll get done, but and then if the Ankara blazer goes well, then hopefully I'll do that. But quite honestly, I'm open to suggestions because, you know, the potential is there. I've got quite a bit of it. I forget how much I bought now. I'm going to say 3 meters, maybe a bit more, 3.5. So yeah, definitely enough for probably 2 garments, but depending what they are.
You need an occasion to motivate you to make it.
I'm definitely more motivated with a deadline.
Yeah,
so yeah,
I know the feeling.
They are my precious fabrics. Yeah. The other thing you actually asked me, where on time? Oops. You asked me about how I store my patterns, and I thought I'd bring these down to show you. So I keep all my patterns in A3 envelopes. Hang on, let's try and work out where the.
I can put you back on full screen. Here we go.
There we go. I still can't find it even with full screen. So I bought some. I saw this online quite a few years ago. So I bought some A3, clear envelopes, and then I write on the inside what it is that it's storing, and then I you know, which size, which you know, which pattern. Because if it's for me, I might cut a different one, and then obviously I have a envelope for my mum, an envelope for the kid, you know, different kid, my son, daughter, my husband. So that's how I store my patterns, and then they sort of fold in quite neatly together, and then you can, if you've got like quite a big shelf height, deep shelf, then you can sort of just slot them in. I mean, you can also put a project in them as well, like if you want to cut them out, but I tend to like to not keep, well, I say that, my blazer is still on the project file, but I tend to try and, you know, sew a project, get to the end of it, then start a new one.
Yeah, not so much of a batch cutter, more of a start one, finish one, move on.
Yeah, because otherwise, you know, the world's too tempting.
They all back up, yeah. So do you have like a big box or something that you keep all your patterns in?
No, so I did have a shelf. I had probably about this much of a shelf, and I could fit, I don't know, I'm going to say 10. I mean, there was obviously like multiple patterns in each one. You can get an awful lot of patterns in just, you know, a small amount of space, as long as you've got the height. yeah, but at the minute, having a rearrange. So they're currently homeless. They're sort of sat in a sad corner upstairs waiting for these lovely shelves to appear that haven't yet got.
You have to plan a trip to IKEA.
Yeah. There is one round the corner, actually. It's literally a 5-minute drive away. So it's, it could be worse. But yeah, I tried lots of different ways. The other thing I struggle with is I have a lot of vintage patterns, not lots, but a fair number, and I try putting them in the IKEA. I don't know what they're called. They're like clear box. They can come with a lid. I forget what the actual name of it, but some of them, the bigger patterns. I mean, who decided to not go with the size? Standard size of pattern, because the small ones fit in beautifully, but any bigger ones yeah,
it's like, you're ruining my whole system.
I know.
Why are you doing this?
How dare you? So yeah, so that's how so I actually the paper patterns are the thing that I need to work out the most, because they take up, weirdly, as in, with the envelope and everything, they take up the most amount of room. And because I don't like cutting into tissue, I really have an issue with cutting into actual paper patterns. So I trace everything first. So even if I have the paper pattern, it still ends up in one of these, because I'll trace it out and trace in paper, because I really don't messing with the originals.
Yeah, is that because you don't like working with the cut out tissue, or because you don't want to lose that pattern if you cut out the wrong size or something?
Yeah. So it's a combination of, I don't trust myself to if I make a mistake, it's gone. At least with a PDF, I do. In general, I'm a PDF pattern lady, but and I actually quite enjoy the licking and sticking. I know not everybody does, but I like to know that I can always reprint.
Yeah,
but you can't do that with the paper, so I like to have the backup of tracing it out. And also then, but it's annoying, because if I make something, and it's quite often my mum's gone, I like that. My mum's different size to me, and then if you've already cut into the paper, then
oh, tough luck, Mum, you'll have to buy the pattern again.
Just squeeze into this one. Breathe in and don't breathe out. So yeah, but and the vintage patterns, I couldn't face cutting those. I mean,
yeah, well, if you don't if you can't find them again as well, like, at least with a current pattern, if you do really mess it up, you could probably just buy it again. Like, it's annoying, but you can. But with a vintage one, if it's gone, that's it.
Oh, it just pains my heart to just think of, because it's nothing worse than, when you get a pattern or vintage pattern that's been cut, and sort of, I don't know, a bit disappointed. It depends what size it's been cut as well,
Yeah,
might be lucky. Some of them are just one size, but yeah. So in general, it's a big no for me.
Yeah, I feel like I think that you sew quite a lot of vintage patterns. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say I own a lot more than I actually get round to sew. My appetite for sewing vintage patterns is enormous, but the practicalities are really that I just can't manage as many. But I've challenged myself, sort of internal model on this year. I will sew more. So I have an awful lot, and also, people give me vintage patterns because they know that I like them. My mum is always, here you go, here's another load of stuff, and there are some absolute gems in there, but I just haven't got round to doing them, because it's easy to get sidetracked with the new and shiny stuff on Instagram, where actually what I really want is already sitting in the spare room. It's just I keep forgetting I've got it. And so I do have to refresh my memory every once in a while to go, okay, if I want a blouse, what blouse patterns do I have? If it's a PDF, that's easy, because you're just on, I can see on my online little folder where I keep them or what I've got. But the actual printed ones, so there must be a better way. I probably have to come out with a better way of
stash up.
Just refresh it. Yeah, always remembering to look at my to look at my patterns before I then go and get sidetracked with something new and shiny.
Yeah, I think with patterns it's hard as well because you think, oh, this is a new one, I need it, and then you get it and you're like, oh, actually I could have just used my existing pattern if I just like changed the sleeves and made it a bit longer or something like that.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, you go, oh, I like the collar of that, but you're like, yeah, but it's almost identical to that other thing that you've got, if you just tweak it a bit. It's it's easily done.
But yeah, hopefully your sort out will help you like refresh it, and when it's more organized as well, it'll be easier to browse.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be much better. I've got grand plans, which are in there. They're just not, in reality yet. But already having the clear out at the beginning of the year, because I did when we did the fabric swap, I sort of got a lot of stuff that I didn't want, or just sort of changed my tastes. So that was swapped. And I got some vintage patterns in return because I just love them. So already I feel mentally like it's getting a bit more manageable. But yeah, once the patterns are the big thing for me, it's just trying to get on top of the actual location and everything, because then I really can sort of browse the I don't know what the boxes. I don't know what we call them. The boxes. We'll call them.
Yeah, have it all like nicely neat and yeah.
Exactly.
Like a nice little shop, but it's all the stuff that you've already bought, so it's very.
Yeah, my vision one day is when I finally get big enough to have a little studio, I will have my little area of vintage patterns. One day.
Exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tanya. I think we'll wrap it up here so we don't keep you all night. But it's really good to hear about all your fabric, and I especially enjoyed Aunt Lydia's precious stash. I thought that was really lovely. I'm quite sad about maybe you won't be able to reproduce the design, because I was like, oh, as soon as you said that. But yeah,
I need to speak to some specialists, because that's well beyond.
There must be some amazing like vintage designs out there that are up for grabs though.
There's once you scratch the surface, there's loads. So there's companies out there, and I'm in contact with a few of them who sell actual pattern books where you can get the original hand-drawn patterns, everything from like the 1860s up to the 1970s. I think copyright finishes in 1970, so you can reproduce anything sort of before that. But then also you can also get actual fabric and then to do it. So that is a done thing in the fashion industry, to get vintage pieces and then sort of recreate fabric. So that's my
that'll be the dream.
Well, no, hopefully it'll be the dream for October. We'll see.
Wow.
Yeah, so we'll see how this fabric goes. If it bombs, then maybe next year.
I've got great faith in you, Tanya, especially after like hearing about you doing a marathon and like diving, and this like this is stuff that most people do not do. They'd be like, yeah, I might try diving one day, and they never do it. Whereas I feel like you're going for it, you're getting it. So I'm really like hyped for this now. This is going to be awesome. Roll on October.
Yeah, by October we'll have you diving, Yvette.
Oh God, no! Just bring me the reprint fabric. I won't go in the sea. Keep me out of the sea. You can show me a picture when you find the Bornella slug, but I'm not going in the sea. I don't want to see it in person. Oh, amazing. Well, anyway, thank you everyone for joining us live, and thank you if you've watched on catch up as well. Do pop us a comment in the comments below so we know that you enjoyed this episode. And if you're in London from the 21st of March, do come and say hi to both me and Tanya at the Stitch Festival, because we'll both be there. So yeah, I'll hopefully see you soon, either in person or next Wednesday for the next Stash Chat. Bye.
Cheerio, everyone. Bye.